What's going on, guys? Matty Ice here. Welcome back to another episode of Investing with Matty Ice. What a freaking day, man. We are going to talk about the continued catastrophic collapse of STRC. And I'm going to be upfront here. I want to get this out of the way. I actually believe STRC is a failed project at this point. Now, let me be clear. That does not mean I think STRC is going away or going to zero. And I'm certainly not buying into this FUD about it being a Ponzi scheme, or we're witnessing an FTX style collapse again, or Terra Luna, like comparing it to all these ridiculous things. That's bullshit. All right. It's none of that. And I'm actually going to do a separate video comparing like what's happening with STRC to Terra Luna and all that. I'm not buying into it. I think STRC will be fine over the long run. And I think it will eventually get back to par around $100. I do think it's going to take a very long time. And I'm not confident that it will get back to par before the end of the year at this point, which ties into why I believe STRC is a failed project, because it has completely failed its original promise of being this low volatility asset that you could lever up 3 to 5 times. Like we've heard Michael Saylor talk about how many times on, podcasts and keynote speeches and stuff like that, like the next evolution of digital credit, which would be a digital money built on top of STRC, and you could loop that or lever it 3 to 5 times. I've heard him say that numerous times on different podcasts. And, people also buying this thing as a short to medium term duration asset, which is what I did. I had always planned on selling my STRC at some point for future financial obligations. My thought process, though, was, okay, low volatility asset, might as well earn 11.5% while I'm waiting for that financial obligation to come due, which fortunately isn't until the end of October. So I still have a few months for this thing to hopefully recover. But at this point, I'm forced to hold this stock at this point. It has completely failed its original promise that it would, it's a low volatility asset. And here's the thing, some volatility is okay. I was expecting that. STRC has been volatile in the past, not like what we're witnessing right now. What we're witnessing right now is completely unacceptable. It is just insane what has taken place. As I record this, STRC is at $81.22. You're down 20% from par in a couple of weeks. So it's a failed project because it's failed its promise of being this low volatility asset, potentially being an alternative for money market funds and bonds and CDs, savings accounts, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, your savings account, money market doesn't lose 20% in 2 weeks. So it's the confidence that's been lost and completely shattered. The trust, the credibility is just lost. It is gone. I want nothing to do with STRC ever again at this point, even though I believe it will eventually get back to par. But now I'm in a position where I have to come up with a backup plan for the end of October to fulfill my financial obligation, like to make sure that's covered, which that's fine. I'll be able to cover it even if I don't have to sell STRC. But the fact that I'm in this position right now is really frustrating. And listen, I'm not putting blame on anybody. I made the decision, okay, to buy STRC. I took the risk, and it is what it is. And here's the thing. I think it's going to be fine over the long run. And then when it eventually does get back to par and I do sell it, I will have made thousands and thousands of dollars in dividends at that point. So at that point, would I be complaining about it? No. It's the messaging, the marketing, the failure of that original promise that makes me believe STRC has totally failed at this point. All right. It's not that it's going to zero. Things will be fine. Another frustrating thing is the lack of response and the types of the lack of response from management and the types of responses that I'm seeing from other people. Like, listen, this is not to call this person out or any of these people out specifically, but I was listening to a podcast the other day where this gentleman was talking about how STRC is doing what it's designed to do. And the fact that it's only down 20% or 15% at the time and Bitcoin's down 50% means it's absorbing that volatility. So it's doing what it's designed to do. No, it's not. You know what? Here's the thing. Even if it is, it's not doing what it was promised to do. That's even worse. See, if it's doing what it's designed to do, and it was marketed that way, that's a different story. But this thing was marketed at low volatility. And if we go to the strategy website, the volatility of STRC is 66% today. The 30-day volatility is 21.6%. To me, that is massive, a massive failed promise. And to sit here and say that this is doing what it's designed to do, is that a joke? People bought this, including myself, expecting this to be a low volatility asset. Some volatility here and there, fine. You know, we've seen that in the past. Okay. So like when I purchased STRC, you know, I saw this. I was like, okay, you know, it's come down, but it gets back to par relatively quickly. It has these self-healing mechanisms in place, which we'll get to here in a second, but they're not working. And I think it's because people have lost all confidence in this product, in the promise of STRC. And so what's happening is normally when STRC, something like STRC trades like this, and I should mention that SATA is getting smashed as well. So apparently daily dividends is not the solution either. Okay. But normally what happens with a product like STRC, where it's supposed to trade at par and the dividends are paid at par. So the 11.5% that it's currently paying is paid at the $100 par value. So if you buy STRC at $81 right now, your effective yield is over 14%. That's phenomenal, right? So why isn't anybody buying it? Where are the buyers? The fact that this is not getting bid up, we did have a bid up right here. I think this was, what is it? Was this Thursday or Friday? I don't remember. But we had this massive liquidation event, basically, is what this was. People were getting margin called and all that stuff, which is another really, really frustrating part of STRC as well. I'm not a huge fan of margin in general. And I actually spoke about this a couple of weeks ago where I expressed concern about Michael Saylor talking about how you could buy STRC, lever it up 3 to 5 times and create digital money or whatever. You could just keep the yield and stuff. Like he's almost encouraging leverage on this thing because it's low volatility. And it was for a little while, but it works until it doesn't. And people get mass liquidated right here. That's what we saw here. But then we quickly saw people bid it back up. That was pretty encouraging, but that did not last very long. And I think they're just not being aggressive enough to stop the bleeding here. And short sellers are just having an absolute field day. Because normally what happens is people bid this up because of the effective yield. You're effectively earning 14% plus when it gets back to par, you earn all of that capital appreciation, the price appreciation as well. This on paper is a really good trade right now. But the fact that it's not being bid up means that there's all confidence has been lost right now. So what is management doing to restore that confidence? They're not doing anything. Now, when I say that, obviously they're doing something behind the scenes. Okay. They're just not letting anybody know about it. Maybe that's strategic. Maybe there's like some 4D chess going on here. Because look, I'm just some guy on the internet. Okay. I am not anywhere near as smart as these guys or as qualified. I'm not qualified to run a multi-billion-dollar Bitcoin treasury company, managing preferred stock and common stock and all this stuff. Okay. I know the basics, but I certainly I'm not qualified to make these types of decisions. Okay. However, this right here to me is unacceptable. And as somebody that owns, as a shareholder of STRC, I would like to see more drastic action taken because the lack of response has been ridiculous, especially like on X and the messaging and stuff like that. It is like, it's almost like it's not happening to them. Like if this is just business as usual and everything's going to be fine. And you know what? Maybe it is, but people are losing their ass right now because of the promise that they made that they are now breaking. And I want to be careful with that. It's not like, obviously they did not intend for this to happen. I don't think anybody expected this level of volatility on STRC ever. Okay. And I think they're prepared for it. And they're going to do things to restore confidence over the long run. We'll get to that in a minute. But the lack of response at all from Michael Saylor, Fong Li, like anybody at the strategy team, like if we go to Michael Saylor's page here, this is what he posted today or earlier this morning, I guess. Digital credit is income for investors who believe in Bitcoin. And this was while STRC's effective yield was only 13%. Now it's about 14%. Okay. So they're trying to convince people, that this is a good trade. And we could see that. Obviously it is. But what are we doing to address this? Like, how do you make sure this doesn't happen again? Because at this point, all confidence and credibility is lost. So like, I don't care about this. This doesn't mean anything to me. How does this thing get back to par? Is it maybe just the effective yield? I don't think so, because the effective yield is 14% and people are still not bidding it up. Right? So the lack of response has been extremely frustrating. Fong actually talked about, he posted yesterday or the day before, he bought $1 million of STRC. Will hold it until it reaches par, likely longer. That's a bit vague. But hey, $1 million of STRC, good for you. That's not working out too good right now, because it's down like 10% since then. But, and then today, Bitcoin and AI are the two most transformative technologies of the 21st century. Markets rarely appreciate transformative technologies in a straight line. What does that have to do with STRC down 7%, 6 or 7% today? Like, what are we doing to address this? Now, here's the thing. Let's get into the mechanisms for this to eventually get back to par. That's why I'm not panic selling, guys. A lot of people are panic selling right now. And listen, you do what you have to do. If you have zero confidence in this and you just want to cut your loss, look, this is not financial investment advice. I'm just sharing my thought process and how I'm dealing with this right now. Here's why I'm not panic selling. I'm pissed. I'm really frustrated because of the broken promise of this thing being low volatility. All right. But I'm not panic selling because I do believe it's going to be okay over the long run. And here's why. First off, the first question we need to ask ourselves is, are they going to continue paying dividends? Yes or no? Well, I think the obvious question is yes, because when we look at the balance sheet, we have to go back to the numbers, guys. We have to turn off all the FUD, turn off the headlines. Don't let these things shake you out or flush you out, okay? You have to make decisions based on actual facts and information. So let's go back to the balance sheet and let's ask ourselves, is strategy bankrupt? Is strategy going bankrupt? Is there something fundamentally broken with strategy here? I don't see it, because their balance sheet is stronger than it was, like 4 years ago, back in 2022, when strategy at one point was underwater with regard to their assets. Like, they had more debt than assets at that point, by like $300 million. Now, despite all the craziness that's taking place right now in the Bitcoin bear market, they're still massively over collateralized. They still have $50 billion of Bitcoin compared to, if you combine their all the preferred stock and the the convertible debt, 20 billion, like $20 billion. We'll call it 22. Okay. So I think this is adjusted for the recent buy down that they did. And it looks like maybe they bought down more. That's interesting. All right, we'll get to that later. Anyways, the point is, they're massively over collateralized, right? They're 2 times over collateralized. They still have about 30 years of dividend coverage in Bitcoin. They have 9.8 months worth of dividend coverage in their USD reserve, which they have been building up again and restoring. So are they going to continue? Well, first off, are they going bankrupt? No, not with a balance sheet like this. It doesn't make sense. All right. And then, are they going to continue paying dividends? Well, yeah. Well, why wouldn't they? It wouldn't make sense for them to not pay dividends, because they have the assets, they have the money. Now, whether they use this USD reserve or sell some Bitcoin, or they sell more MSTR shares, whatever, the dividend is likely going to get paid. So if the dividend is going to continue to get paid, then I'm just going to continue to collect those dividends and wait for it to get back to par. Now, here's why the continuation of dividend payments is so important, because I believe this is a massive stress test of this brand new asset class. And if they can prove that they will continue to pay dividends and respond to market conditions by increasing the dividend rate, and they switch to semi-monthly dividends as well. They're restoring the USD reserve. They're doing all these things to restore confidence. I don't think it's aggressive enough. I don't think it's fast enough. But if they prove that they will continue to pay dividends despite this volatility right here, despite all the FUD, I think long term that's proof that STRC is not going anywhere. Like they're in this for they have the balance sheet to weather the storm, weather volatility, continue paying dividends despite what's happening with the asset. I think that will eventually, over the long run, restore confidence. But that's also why that's like the main reasons why I'm not panic selling, because they're going to continue paying dividends, and they're going to do things like increasing the dividend rate probably by 50 basis points, which will raise the effective yield even more. And that will encourage, hopefully that'll be enough. Like if it's 50 basis points, that brings the dividend rate to 12%. Hopefully that's enough to encourage more buying. We'll see. I don't think that's aggressive enough, but time will tell. But when we look at this metric right here, I mean, it's obvious they have to raise the dividend rate. This effective yield is the market telling them that they need at least 14% at the moment. It's basically the market is saying we need a higher dividend rate, right? Because this fluctuates, so it's not like an exact number. But the metric that we look at with regards to when and by how much they will raise the dividend, it's this 1 month VWAP. And this was in their credit guidance within one of their SEC filings back in August of, I think it was 2025. Maybe it was earlier than that. But they basically said anytime this metric is below $95, then they recommend an increase of the dividend rate by at least 50 basis points or more. I think they need to do more than that. I think it needs to be at least 12.5. I think they need to be more aggressive, but that's just my opinion, right? Take it for what it is. But I think that combined with continuing to pay dividends, continuing to buy Bitcoin, all right, it's going to be okay over the long run. But they absolutely 110% need to make sure that this level of volatility does not happen again. Some is okay, but this is totally unacceptable. And they need to change the marketing, the messaging around it, because this is a far cry from a low volatility, short to medium term duration asset. Now, if you're holding this for the long run and you're just collecting dividends, that's fine. You can just chill. I mean, obviously it's still stressful, but again, when you look at the balance sheet and their ability to pay dividends, it's probably going to be fine. But if you bought this thing intending to sell it a few months later on, this is not good at all. And they need to change that marketing message very significantly, in my opinion. Like telling people to lever this thing up and, this is better than money markets and stuff. I think eventually it will, but right now it's getting its ass handed to it at the moment. So I don't know. It's really frustrating, but it's probably going to be fine. That's why I'm not panic selling. And if I thought this thing was a Ponzi scheme to begin with, then I obviously never would have bought it. And I'm going to do a separate video. I actually talked about it in the live session last Sunday, why this is not a Ponzi scheme. It's like the exact opposite. And real quick, it's not because they buy the assets. You buy STRC and they go and buy Bitcoin with it. They put it on the balance sheet and it's 2x over collateralized. That's not a Ponzi scheme. Okay. So that's just ridiculous. But the marketing is the most frustrating part, and the lack of response. But it is what it is. That's the end of my rant, guys. Let me know what you think. Drop some comments down below. Any questions that you guys have as well. How are you navigating STRC right now, if at all? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Either way, hope you guys are crushing it, and I'll talk to you in the next one. To your success. Matty Ice is out.